longer on MSNBC. It's right here at WeGotEd.com. And thanks for the download, thanks for the view, the listen, and all that other good stuff. Get your friends to like me on Facebook. I got a lot to say right here every day. And I want to clear something up, if I may, right off the top today. Apparently, there's stories that are circulating in the media that I left MSNBC with some kind of a tantrum or was pissed off and didn't do my last show. I mean, this is a classic. First of all, let me say, I got one phone call from a reporter, and that was from the Fargo Forum newspaper, which I did not return because I was not able to say anything because of contractual issues. I posted something on my website at WeGotEd.com. It's been viral. People understand, I think. But I just want you to understand, if you may, that the conservative media is doing everything they possibly can to degrade me, to tarnish me in any possible way. I threw a tantrum, left the building, refused to do the last show. To degrade me. Bullshit. Okay? We'll just give it to you straight. I was told about this on July 16th, and I said to Phil Griffin, you want me to do the show until when? He said, we don't know what the end date is. It might be the 31st. It might be August 7th. Okay. He says, you could take a couple of days off. So I scheduled a Thursday and Friday, and there were other families involved, and we had plans. And so I was going to take Thursday and Friday off. I got a call early last week saying, well, we want to move it up to this Friday, the 31st. I said, well, Phil, you told me to take a couple of days off. I'm going to be gone Thursday and Friday. He says, I got it. You're fine. Whatever you want to do. If you want to come back Monday and say goodbye. I said, no, I don't want to say goodbye. I said, I'm going to go to WeGotEd.com and I'll make a statement. And I said, nobody's dying here, okay? Nobody's dying. I'm still going to work. I'm still going to be all over the country. I'm still going to be doing things. You'll be able to see my work here. I'm hiring more people for Ed Schultz Broadcasting. We're purchasing more equipment. We're going to be a full operational website for news and information and, of course, entertainment. And I'm going to give it to you straight. So this idea that I didn't show up for my last show, that was planned a week in advance, and I didn't know that Friday was going to be the last day. I was asked to come back today. I said, no, I don't need to do that. I put a statement on my website, took the high road, which was the correct road and the fair road for everybody. It's a business decision. It's not the end of the world. Nobody died. I'm going to be just fine. They're going to be just fine. They want to do something else. You know what? I kind of want to do something else now. So it's all going to be fine. All right. Now, to give you a flavor of the freedom that I'm going to have here, let's start with the story that Joe Biden is going to run for president. And there's a big hub-hub-hoo about who President Obama is going to support. I don't think it matters. We know one thing, that Barack Obama is not going to support Bernie Sanders. I'm a Bernie Sanders guy, okay? I don't dislike the other candidates, but I'm a Bernie Sanders guy. I believe that his direction for the country is far better than the establishment politics. The mainstream media on all the talking heads are trying to do everything they possibly can to get Bernie Sanders to say some bullshit on Hillary Clinton. It ain't going to happen, okay? It's not going to happen. And when it comes to Joe Biden is going to take, if he runs, he's going to take support away from Hillary Clinton. The Bernie Sanders supporters are not going to go to Joe Biden. It ain't going to happen. And if you look at their positions, the way they voted in the Senate over the years, their experiences paralleling one another. Joe Biden was on foreign relations for 30 years, vice president for 8 years. I mean, it's a great resume. But he's just like Hillary, and Hillary's just like him on most of the issues. For instance, on Trans-Pacific Partnership, Joe Biden is out there pimping the thing, saying it's a great thing. Every union in the country, which he has aligned himself with, says, no, we don't want it. So there's your first riff right there. What is Joe Biden going to do with Wall Street? Does he want to break up the big banks? That's what Bernie Sanders wants to do. Where is Joe Biden on free college tuition at all state universities across the country? What is Joe Biden going to do for unemployment? And I think he would be very good there. I do. And I think Joe Biden would do a heck of a job with the African-American community. I think he would do a great job with law enforcement. If you remember, he wrote the Clinton crime bill that put 100,000 cops on the streets. I mean, Joe Biden's been around. But Bernie Sanders supporters are not going to flock to Joe Biden and say, oh, Joe's running, I got to leave Bernie. That ain't going to happen. So here's Bernie Sanders on ABC's This Week talking about a Biden run.
Well, I've known Joe Biden for many years, and I'm very fond of Joe. But I think the American people who are seeing the middle class of this country disappearing, massive levels of income and wealth inequality, a campaign finance system which is literally corrupt now, owned by billionaires as a result of this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision, want to go beyond conventional establishment politics. And I think, when you mention why we have had 100,000 people on Wednesday night coming out all over this country saying enough is enough, government has to respond to the needs of the middle class, not the billionaires, I think that's what's going on in this country, and I'm not sure that conventional politics will do it anymore.
Bernie went on to talk about his progress of his campaign and how far they've come along.
We have made phenomenal progress in the last 3 months, and you know what? We're going to continue to make that kind of progress. We are going to be reaching out effectively, I believe, to the African American community, because I have not only one of the strongest civil rights voting records in the United States Congress, we have an agenda that calls for creating jobs, for raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, to making public colleges and universities tuition-free. That is going to appeal in a significant way, I believe, to the African-American community, to the Hispanic community. So let's talk 3 months from now. I think you will see that our campaign makes significant inroads all across the country.
So what we have right now, as I've said before, and I will continue to say this because this is what's happening on the left, there is a fight for the heart and soul of the Democratic Party right now. How far does the Democratic Party want to go for workers? How far do they want to go on health care? How far they want to go on Wall Street? How far they want to go to regulate Wall Street and also campaign finance reform and also trade? These are the huge issues that separate these candidates. So the mainstream media now, their issue is, gosh, we got to get Bernie pissed off at Hillary. We got to get him to say something. Guess what? It isn't going to happen. He doesn't have to say anything negative about anybody, because he is the only one that is willing to take the hardline position that these are the things we have to do in this country if we're going to make a difference. So here's the exchange. Will you please say something bad about Hillary, Bernie?
I have a lot of respect for Hillary Clinton. She is somebody I've known for 25 years. I'm not going to be engaging in personal attacks against her.
So you won't say whether or not she's honest and
trustworthy? I'm not going to be engaging in personal attacks against her. Okay. She and I disagree on many issues. The American people want a serious debate about serious issues, not personal attacks.
So there you have it. They're trying to get Bernie Sanders to talk some trash on Hillary. It isn't going to happen because he doesn't have to. He's a solid guy. People think that the media is lying on the left when we say that Bernie Sanders has never run a negative ad in his entire political career. I think it's remarkable. I don't think he's not going to run one. Some political analysts think that the only way he's going to be able to make it through this C is that he's going to have to run negative ads. I don't believe that. I don't believe it at all. Now, Biden has gone through some pretty tough times. There's no question about it. I mean, he's lost his son recently. It's tragic as can be. It's got to weigh heavy on his heart. Does he want the strain of running for president? But Joe Biden's not the kind of guy that want to retire. He's got a lot of tire left. There's no doubt. Debbie Wasserman Schultz talked about that on Meet the Press.
There would always be room for the sitting vice president if he chose to run for president. But let's remember and take one step back that Vice President Biden has just been through the most heart-wrenching tragedy that a parent could ever experience in the loss of his son, Beau, who was a friend of mine. And it was deeply tragic to watch that family go through what they have. But as chair of the DNC, I can tell you that throughout the beginnings of the 2016 presidential cycle, as the DNC, we have kept candidates and potential candidates fully informed about what we're doing at the DNC, how we're prepping, what they needed to know potentially. So we've been in communication with both potential and actual candidates throughout this process.
All right. I think she's walking the right line. There's no question about that. All right. Then there's the Trump factor. Now, this week, of course, I think it's Thursday night, it's going to be the Republican debate. Trump is masterful. He comes out over the weekend and says he's not a great debater. He's setting the stage for low performance. This is a guy who has gone after all the other Republican candidates. This is a guy who has taken a hardline position on immigration, guarantees he can create jobs. says he'll straighten out the Middle East. And guess what, folks? Latest NBC News Wall Street Journal poll, Donald Trump is leading the pack. And he's going to continue to lead the pack until he has some major stumbles or gets tongue-tied and can't express where he is on issues and gets counterpunched in a way and gets caught flat-footed in a debate and doesn't know what to say and weave his way through it. And so he knows this. So Trump comes out and says, well, I'm not a great debater. Listen to this.
Well, I'm not a debater. These politicians, I always say, they're all talk, no action. They debate all the time. They go out and they debate every night. I don't debate. I've created tremendous jobs. I built a great company. I do a lot of things, and maybe my whole life is a debate in a way. But the fact is, I'm not a debater, and they are. But with that being said, I look forward to it. We'll see what happens. Who knows?
I think people are going to accept that answer. They know he's not a debater. They know he's never been on a political stage. He's a shoot-from-the-hip kind of guy. Now, how this is going to play in a debate, that's the entertainment hook in all of this in the first Republican showdown of 2016. For more on this, let's go to John Nichols, Washington correspondent of The Nation magazine, a great friend. John, good to have you with us.
Mr. Ed Schultz, it's a pleasure to be with you, sir.
Okay, so he's not a debater. What does that mean, if anything?
Well, I think that means that he's a great negotiator. He's very famous for this, Ed. He lowers the expectations. He comes in, looking like, I've got all sorts of big ideas. I may be a bit of a bumbler, blah, blah, blah. And then, famously, and people who've dealt with Trump say, when it matters, the guy's no fool. Yeah. He knows how to, focus in on the issues and the ideas that he wants to deliver a message about. So, yes, he's lowering his expectations. He is prepping to go into this thing. My sense is he will have at least one or two spots, Ed, where he nails an issue, where he's very carefully prepared for it, and people will say, wow, you didn't sound that bad there. But most of what he does will be ripping into the other candidates. Now, I know some people don't expect that, and maybe he won't. I understand. But just look at what he did over the weekend, Ed. The Jeb Bush and Scott Walker and all these other folks are playing up to the billionaires.
Yeah.
Walker was out there at the Koch brothers summit.
Yeah.
So were some of the other candidates. What did Donald Trump say? He sent out a tweet with the line, puppets, ? And then he said, good luck to all the Republicans who are out begging the Koch brothers for money.
See, and I think that plays right to the frustration of a lot of Americans. Trump has an uncanny ability, and I don't know where he got it from, this uncanny ability to figure out where the people are. He's way ahead of the rest of the field. He can calculate, how does this going to look? Mm-hmm. How is this going to play out? He's got tremendous foresight in that regard. And I think that comes from business deals.
Well, that's negotiating. Right?
I think that comes from his ability and his experience and his life experience of making a decision and figuring out how this is going to play out. All these guys are out there making these political calculations. Okay, I need the money. The Kochs are going to help me out. Everybody else is doing it, so I guess I might as well. And so Trump attacks that. Here's what Jeb Bush had to say about Trump. He thinks he's going to get weeded out on the issues.
I was surprised that Donald Trump has surged. I think he's captured the deep frustration that people feel. I mean, I get that. I get the lack of rule of law, the sanctuary cities, the open borders, all those things. He's, in a very graphic way, appealed to people's anger about those things. And I think it's important to be respectful of that, make the case that we can fix these things. And over time, the Trump phenomena will either succeed or fail based on his proposals.
Now, that is the headiest response that I've heard so far on dealing with Trump. Make the case that we can fix these things. And understanding that Trump has put his finger on a deep frustration. In other words, I know we've got to address this, but we're going to do it in a different way. That, John Nichols, that's how I took that soundbite. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think, look, this is a classic Bush thing, right? It's a relatively dull answer, but it's done in a very measured way. And Jeb Bush has a couple of deep concerns going into this debate. He does not, A, want to be the primary target of Donald Trump. He doesn't want it to be Bush versus Trump up there. So you actually hear him kind of dialing it down while still clearly distancing. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because you can love Jeb Bush, you can hate him, but the truth of the matter is, just as Trump's an experienced businessman, Bush is an experienced politician.
Sure.
He was literally raised, in this game.
And it sounded like an experienced voice, John. I mean, how Jeb Bush handled Trump. It sounded like an experienced voice, and level-headed folks are going to eventually gravitate to Bush. I think he's head and shoulders above the rest of the candidates, but he's got a Trump problem. There's no question about it.
There's no doubt about that. Now, here's where it gets interesting. I genuinely think Bush, for his strengths and weaknesses, knows how he's going to handle this thing on Thursday. And remember, he's got $100 million, in all those different accounts, and probably more coming in. So he's feeling relatively okay. The guys that you should really watch up there on that stage are folks like Walker, in particular. Trump has signaled in the last week that he really wants to go after Walker. And he's got an arsenal of information about Walker that he's been quoting. And I think that Koch brothers call-out, I think, was the signal that Trump will be going at Walker and Rubio, I think, in particular.
I think a great national poll would be of Americans, do you like the insurgency that the Koch brothers are doing on American politics? Because that's what it is. I'm not so sure Americans think this is cool. I'm not so sure they think this is fair. Hardline conservatives are going to sit there and say, well, yeah, they're pushing policies I like. We want to win at all costs. But I think fair-minded Americans are going to sit back and say, you know what? I'm not sure this is the way I want politics in America to work. We want the best man for the job, not the one with the most power. And we'll see how it all unfolds. John Nichols, sorry I could not be with you on Friday on the Ed Show, which was apparently the last Ed Show. I had some other plans. I appreciated your very nice comments. And I know that we're going to do a lot of great work together on this website at WeGotEd.com and other things I got cooking. John, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
It's always an honor to be with you, Ed.
All right, my man. Thanks. This is the Ed Schultz Internet broadcast. You can get it at rawstory.com, ringofireradio.com, and WeGotEd.com. Like me on Facebook. We put features up there every single day, lots of information. And so we're not going anywhere but right here at WeGotEd.com. This is brought to you by Communication Workers of America, Alliance for American Manufacturing, BioGreen Clean, and the iSave team. Now this. Hey, folks, you've heard me talk about BioGreen Clean. I'm going to show you right now on my airplane just how tough this is. I want you to keep in mind, chemical-free, 100% plant-derived, biodegradable. It is the safest cleaner that you can get, and it's the most effective. Go to our website, WeGotEd.com, or go to biogreenclean.com, www.biogreenclean, and order today.
We perpetuate a culture of crime all the way from Wall Street right down to the main street in our hometowns. It's worse than it has been since FDR took control of the problem and said we can't count on industry taking care of the American labor. They probably have already engaged into some type of criminal cover-up, and the law prohibits the government from even doing anything about it.
Catch America's lawyer Mike Papantonio on YouTube at youtube.com/GoLeftTV.
Subscribe to the Ed Schultz podcast today. Simply log on to iTunes, search for Ed Schultz, and click the subscribe button to have the show delivered to your preferred listening device daily, free of charge. Rate and review the podcast and tell us how we're doing. More details at WeGotEd.com.
Absolutely. Like us on Facebook. Thanks for that. Thanks for the download. Thanks for the watch. Here on the Ed Schultz Internet broadcast at WeGotEd.com, rawstory.com, and ringofireradio.com. People are asking, well, what are you going to do now, Ed? Well, I'm going to work. I'm going to work on this site. I'm going to fill it with a lot of content and people. We're adding people. I'm going to go around the country, and I'm going to give political speeches. I can say what I want. I can rile up the base. I'm obviously going to do everything I can for labor in this country because I believe in it. I believe in collective bargaining. I believe that workers ought to be able to say what they want to say in the workplace and organize and get a better deal. And I think that retirement is important. I think that pension important, security important, health care important, wage important. You know, a rising tide lifts all boats. And union wages in this country set the bar. That's why the Republicans are attacking unions. Number one, they don't want to pay workers. Number two, they don't want to fight the political army that's out there fighting for American families. They have a Koch brothers style mentality. We'll pay you what the hell we think you're worth, not what you're really worth. And that's really where it is. And so I'm gonna be all over the country. I love to fly my airplane. I got a grand caravan. I love to go fishing. There's a lot of things I can do. I'm going to speak at conventions. I'm going to go to small town rallies. I'm going to speak my piece. And I want Bernie Sanders to be president of the frickin' United States. You got it? That's where I'm at. And I'm going to call politicians out, no matter who they are, if they're wrong on the issues for the security of our country. And I'm going to be able to do this freely and openly, and I'm looking forward to that. And so that energizes me in itself. Now, earlier we were talking about Joe Biden and the differences between Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders and the similarities between Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton. Trade is huge. I have spent countless hours on this issue. I don't know why the mainstream media hasn't spent more time on it. Maybe because they think it's boring, it's not sexy enough. Maybe they think it's not provocative enough. Maybe they think that it really doesn't mean much to American families. Let me tell you something. This trade deal, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which took a detour over the weekend in Hawaii at the most recent round of negotiating talks, could be horribly damaging to the American economy down the road. And this is a big geopolitical play that has a lot to do with our presence in what they are calling the pivot to Asia in dealing with the Chinese and national security. And my answer to that is, how many nukes do we need? My answer to that is the United States is making a horrible mistake and a big miscalculation to gut the underbelly of our economy because we're afraid what the Chinese might do. The Chinese aren't going to mess with us unless it's in cyberspace, and we got the moxie and the brains to handle that if we get off our fat ass and do something about it. So this is an unnecessary move, but Biden's for it. Biden's been out there selling the TPP. So negotiations for this took somewhat of a blow over the weekend in Hawaii. Despite making significant progress, as I'll read from the story, talks towards the final Trans-Pacific Partnership deal were stalled between the United States and 11 Pacific Latin American nations over several crucial issues, according to news reports. Trade negotiators worked frantically up to the last minute to lock in an agreement on the TPP. For more on what happened, let's go to Lori Wallach. She is the director of Public Citizens Global Trade Watch. Lori, good to have you with us.
Thank you so much, Ed, and I am heartsick about your show. You're a rock star.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. We'll move on and do other things, and we'll have an impact. I think we're saying the things that need to be said, and people are going to be very supportive. I know that.
Well, I think the liberated Ed can even kick more ass, so I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. Okay, what happened in this round? How does agriculture play into this? That's what I'm hearing.
So what basically happened is we were all told, this is it, they're going to make the deal, come hell or high water. And, of course, they've said that 4 other times, starting in 2013. And what basically has happened is the TPP has gotten so controversial in so many of the countries for different reasons in different countries. So, for instance, in a variety of countries, the knockdown, drag-out issue has to do with losing access to affordable health care and medicine, seeing the national health care system attacked. In other countries, they're more commercial issues. Will we be able to sell our dairy products? And in other countries like Australia, they basically won't sign up to those corporate tribunals, those investor-state tribunals. So it's like this high-stakes game where they're all eyeing each other, and it's like who will pull out the straw that can make the whole thing come down. It's been constructed on a lot of bullshit, a lot of spin, a lot of promises that aren't going to come true. And then basically what happened at this meeting in Hawaii is all the head guys, this wasn't just the negotiators, this is the cabinet level guys who ostensibly can make the political decisions. So like the guy who went for the U.S. is a guy named Mike Froman, a Citibank alum. He's our trade minister. They call him the U.S. trade representative. And so he was sitting around the room with a bunch of other guys like that. And this was supposed to be the final thing where, I mean, it's disgusting, but say the guy from Australia says, I'll give you the corporate tribunals if you'll let me sell more sugar. And the guy from New Zealand says, all right, we'll give up affordable medicine if you let me have the right to sell you more dairy. And that kind of disgusting deal. And then the U.S. guy basically says, the pharmaceutical industry insists on this. These guys insist on that. And then they were supposed to basically shake hands. So what happened, the things that did it in, Mexico, interestingly, basically looked across the table at Japan and said, not so fast. You want to get duty-free access for cars made in Japan that have a lot of parts from China, Thailand, countries that aren't even in this deal.
Yeah.
And for Mexico, Mexico's become, we know where all the U.S. auto jobs went under NAFTA. They went to Mexico. So Mexico's become this global powerhouse of cars. But under NAFTA, they can only get into our country to sell those Mexican-made cars, Fords, etc., duty-free if they have parts from either U.S., Canada, or Mexico mainly.
So Mexico wasn't buying this duty-free talk that Japan was throwing at them.
Well, what they were saying is, yeah, we'll have duty-free, but 65% of the parts have to be from within the countries in the deal. And Japan said, no, 30%, because they want all the Chinese parts.
Yeah.
And then New Zealand said, well, unless we can basically wipe out all your small farmers in the U.S., we're not having any deal on dairy.
Yeah.
And then the whole thing fell apart.
So the bottom line here is that despite the fact that we were only 3 votes short in the Congress on Fast Track, Trade Promotion Authority, where the Congress could not negotiate or debate this deal once it comes to them, we're a long way from this deal coming to the Congress for an up or down vote based on what happened over the weekend. There's some major differences here. So now the hourglass of sorts has been turned. The closer we get to the election, the harder it's going to be. Or am I wrong on that?
You're spot on. I worry, Ed, that what they're going to do is they're going to come together in the next 2-3 weeks and basically announce, a BS deal. They'll just wink and say, we have a deal. And the exact reason they'll do that is because what you just said. Yeah. They want to start the clock on that timeline under Fast Track. Because here's the thing. If they can't, in the U.S., give notification to Congress of intent to sign a deal, say by the middle to end of August, they're just flat off the clock for this whole year. There has to be 90 days notice.
Now, the political backdrop of this is that Hillary Clinton will not give an answer on the campaign trail about this. She apparently can't weigh in on American dairy. She apparently can't weigh in on pharmaceuticals. And she apparently can't weigh in on the car industry. She apparently can't weigh in on auto parts and duty-free and all this. She cannot talk about trade philosophy. This is going to erode her numbers even further. In the meantime, you got Bernie Sanders saying this is a bad deal. You got Joe Biden who's going to get vetted out if he decides to run on this. This is a huge issue. American workers are going to pay attention to it. And that's the political backdrop of all of this. Lori, let me ask you a political question. Should it be hard for someone who's running for office to take a stand on this deal?
No, sir.
There you have it.
It should be easy as pie. Because it's do or die for American workers' jobs and wages, whether or not our kids are going to have safe food or imported, say, shrimp grown in ponds of poop, because I hate to tell you this, but that's actually the practice in Vietnam, which wants duty-free access for more shrimp, whether or not Granny's going to have affordable medicine under Medicare, because that's getting meddled with, whether we're going to have Buy America. And our state, when we have our tax dollars spent in our state, is going to be able to reinvest it in local jobs and local companies, or is going to have to send it off to Malaysia. That is all that's at stake. So it should be damn easy to be able to say, this is a loser and I'm against it.
Lori Wallach, Director of Public Citizens Global Watch, great to have you with us. We'll follow the story. This has taken some unusual twists, and it's interesting all the way down to the wire. We, of course, want to defeat this at every level and make Americans realize that it's terrible for workers. Good to have you with us.
All of us are making this difference, folks, so keep it up. Even Congress on Recess needs to hear you. They're at home. Call their local offices. You can see them in the blue pages.
Thanks, Lori.
Thank you.
Now this. It's time to continue our conversation about mechanical insulation. Mechanical insulation is for the piping systems in our nation's commercial and industrial facilities. Facility owners are burning up billions of dollars through the lack of mechanical insulation on these piping systems. Call the iSave team. Insulation saves America valuable energy, and this team of energy conservation specialists is shovel-ready to save you money. Visit iSaveTeam.org to have a specialist give your plant an energy audit.
The Ed Schultz Internet broadcast is brought to you by the Ring of Fire radio show. Listen to the Ring of Fire weekends on radio stations across the country. Get more information and the news of the day at ringofireradio.com.
And, of course, the Communication Workers of America bring you this podcast with Progressive Allies. CWA is building a mass movement to restore workers' rights and win elections for the good guy. CWA-union.org. Check it out today. And Alliance for American Manufacturing, BioGreen Clean, and the iSafe team bring you this podcast. We are back tomorrow. WeGotEd.com, RawStory.com, and RingOfFireRadio.com.